Hello and welcome to Science Night Tales. I am glad you have found this quiet moment to drift. Tonight, we are going to leave the surface behind. We often think of the ocean as waves and beaches, but that is only the thinnest skin of a much deeper world. Most of our planet is hidden in permanent darkness, under pressure that would crush steel, yet it is teeming with life. We are going to descend slowly, layer by layer, from the sunlit shallows to the crushing silence of the abyss. We will meet creatures that glow in the dark, ecosystems that feed on chemicals instead of light, and a stillness that has lasted for millions of years. You do not need to hold your breath tonight. You are safe to observe from a distance. You can simply let the weight of the water wash over you. If this perspective helps you find calm in the depths, you're welcome to like or subscribe. For now, let go of the air and let's sink together. Somewhere far beyond the night sky, you see from your window, there are worlds that do not belong to just one sun. They move through space while two stars rise and set above them. Two dawns, two dusks, two sources of light crossing the same horizon. It sounds like something imagined, but it's real. There are planets that orbit two stars at the same time. They are called circumbinary planets. Instead of circling a single sun like Earth does, they travel around a pair of suns that move around each other. A shared center, a shared path, a shared rhythm. From the surface of one of these worlds, the sky would never look the same twice. Light would come from different angles. Shadows would stretch and shrink. One sun might rise while the other is still high above the horizon. Then later, both might set together. Then, on another day, one might linger while the other disappears first. Two dawns that don't always arrive together. Two dusks that don't always leave at the same time. And yet, these planets stay on their paths. They don't drift away. They don't fall inward. They remain in stable orbits for millions and even billions of years. Right now, as you rest here, there are real planets quietly circling two suns, over and over again, without interruption. No sound, no light show meant for anyone watching. Just motion, just gravity, just steady continuation. It feels strange at first. We're used to thinking of planets as belonging to one star, one source of light, one center. So the idea of a world with two suns feels like it should be chaotic, unpredictable, too complex to last. But the universe allows these systems to exist, and not just briefly. Some of them have remained stable for timescales longer than the entire history of human civilization. The two stars move around each other. The planet moves around both of them. Three bodies, three paths, all held in balance by gravity. It isn't random, it isn't fragile, it follows precise physical rules. Every movement is shaped by mass, distance, and speed. Every orbit is a solution to an equation written in space. From far away, if you could watch one of these systems from a quiet distance, you would see two suns tracing looping paths around each other, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, and a planet tracing a wider, slower path around both, always returning, always continuing, never colliding, never drifting off into darkness, just repeating, again and again and again. On the surface of that planet, time would feel different. Not because the physics is different, but because the light is different. The day wouldn't begin with a single sunrise. Sometimes one sun would rise first. Then, minutes or hours later, the second sun would appear. Two separate moments of light, two gradual brightenings, two shadows shifting direction. Sometimes both suns would rise together. Sometimes only one would be visible for a while. The sky would never follow the same pattern for long. The length of a day might change. The brightness might change. The temperature might gently rise and fall in ways that don't repeat exactly. But none of it would be sudden. None of it would be violent. Just slow variation, slow change, slow motion across the sky. 2 points of light moving in wide arcs, 2 sources of warmth crossing paths, 2 suns taking turns illuminating the same landscape. And when night comes, it might not come all at once. One sun might set first, the sky dimming slightly, then the second sun following later, the world gradually slipping into darkness. 2 sunsets, 2 fading glows, 2 lingering afterlights, then stars, then quiet, then eventually another double dawn. This kind of world isn't hypothetical. Astronomers have already found many circumbinary planets. Some are large, like gas giants. Some are smaller, more Earth-sized. Some orbit close to their suns, some much farther away. Some experience dramatic light shifts, some experience gentle ones, but all of them prove the same thing, that a planet can exist under 2 suns, and not just exist, but remain stable, remain predictable, remain part of a long-term system, even with 2 stars pulling on it at once, even with light that never repeats the same way, even with gravity coming from 2 moving sources. The system finds balance, not by staying still, not by staying symmetrical, but by moving in just the right way. In these systems, nothing is fixed. The stars are always moving. The planet is always moving. Distances are always changing. Angles are always shifting. And yet, the overall pattern remains stable. The planet does not spiral inward. It does not drift outward. It does not collide with either star. It continues along its path. Day after day, year after year, age after age. This kind of stability doesn't come from stillness. It comes from motion, from constant adjustment, from gravitational forces continuously reshaping the orbit. Minor corrections, tiny changes in speed, subtle shifts in direction, all happening silently, all happening without interruption. From far away, it might look complicated. From close up, it would feel gentle, slow, predictable, a steady rhythm made from moving parts. And right now, as you lie here, your own planet is also moving. Earth is orbiting the sun. The sun is orbiting the center of the galaxy. The galaxy is moving through space. Nothing around you is truly still, and yet everything feels stable. The bed beneath you feels steady. The floor beneath the bed feels solid. The room feels quiet. The night feels calm. Stability does not require stillness. It requires balance. Circumbinary planets are proof of that. They show that even with 2 suns, a world can maintain order. Even with 2 sources of gravity, a planet can follow a smooth path. Even with light that never repeats the same way, a cycle can still exist. Not identical cycles, but consistent ones, reliable ones, long-term ones. If you could stand on one of these worlds, you would not feel chaos. You would feel slow change, slow shifts in light, slow shifts in warmth, slow shifts in shadow. You would feel continuity. The sky would not snap from day to night. It would transition, gradually, one sun setting, then the other, or one sun rising, then the other, sometimes overlapping, sometimes separated, sometimes close together in the sky, sometimes far apart, but always following rules, always following paths shaped by gravity, always returning. There are real systems like this that have existed longer than complex life has existed on Earth. They were stable while dinosaurs walked. They were stable while continents drifted. They were stable while humans learned to make fire. They were stable while civilizations rose and fell. They are stable right now. 2 stars, 1 planet, 1 long quiet orbit. It's easy to imagine that 2 suns would make everything too intense, too bright, too unstable, too extreme. But in reality, these worlds can experience gentle light, long twilight periods, extended dawns, extended dusks, slow changes in illumination. The combined light of 2 suns does not always mean harsh brightness. It means variable brightness. It means gradual transitions. It means complexity without disorder. It means motion without collapse. And all of it follows simple physical principles. Gravity pulls, inertia carries, mass curves space, motion responds. There's no mystery force holding these systems together, no hidden stabilizer, no special rule. Just physics, just mathematics, a just motion responding to motion. The same physical laws that keep Earth in orbit around the Sun also keep circumbinary planets in orbit around 2 stars. The same gravity that holds your body to this planet also shapes the paths of distant worlds. The same equations that describe a falling apple also describe a planet circling 2 suns. It's all one system, one set of rules, one continuous structure. When you think about it like that, a world with 2 suns doesn't feel strange anymore. It feels like a natural extension of what already exists. Another variation, another arrangement, another way matter and gravity can organize themselves into something stable. And from a distance, watching such a world, you might feel a quiet kind of awe. Not the sharp kind, not the dramatic kind, just a soft awareness that even in complex systems, a balance can exist, that even in shifting conditions, continuity can persist. That even with 2 moving stars, a planet can remain on its path. Now imagine drifting closer, not falling, not rushing, just slowly approaching one of these worlds. From far away, it's a small point of light, then a disk, then a sphere. Light from 2 suns glinting off its atmosphere, subtle variations in brightness across its surface, shadows moving in slow arcs, a horizon where 2 suns will rise and set. You're not landing, you're just observing. From above, from a quiet orbit of your own, watching as one sun dips below the edge of the planet, watching as the other remains visible for a little longer, watching as light fades in stages, watching as darkness gradually takes over. Then later, watching as one sun begins to rise again, a soft brightening, then the second sun following, 2 gentle increases in light, 2 slow transitions into day, and as you drift closer, you begin to see details, clouds, landforms, oceans or plains or ice fields, not imagined as alive, not imagined as active, just surfaces, just matter shaped by gravity and heat and time, all of it illuminated by 2 distant stars, all of it moving through space on a stable path. Nothing dramatic, nothing sudden, just slow, continuous motion. And as you keep drifting, as the planet fills more of your view, the sense of distance begins to fade. The abstract becomes tangible. The strange becomes familiar. A world with two suns no longer feels impossible. It feels like just another place, another arrangement of matter, another outcome of the same physical laws that shape everything else. And in a moment, you'll drift closer still, closer to the surface, closer to the horizon, closer to the shifting light, closer to the slow repeating cycles of day and night under two suns, closer to the quiet rhythm that will carry you into the next part of this journey. As you drift a little closer to this distant system, the motion becomes easier to understand. Two stars, not fixed in place, not still. They move around each other, slowly, quietly. They share a center of mass, a point in space where their gravitational pulls balance. Neither star is truly the center. Both of them are. They trace looping paths around that shared point, like two dancers moving in a wide circle, always returning to familiar positions. But there is no intention here, no awareness, just mass responding to gravity, just motion following physical law. Now add a planet. It does not orbit one star. It does not switch between them. It orbits the shared center of mass. The same invisible point both stars move around. From a distance, its path looks smooth, wide, stable, predictable. It is not being pulled in two opposite directions at once. It is being pulled toward a single gravitational center created by the combined mass of both stars. The planet feels the gravity of both suns at the same time, every moment. But those forces are not random. They are structured. They change slowly as the stars move. They shift gradually as distances change. The planet responds by adjusting its speed and direction just enough to stay on its path. Tiny corrections, continuous balance, always moving, always adapting, never snapping out of place. It is easy to imagine that two stars would make things unstable, that their combined gravity would tear a planet apart, or fling it into space, or pull it inward until it burns. But in reality, there are zones of stability, regions where a planet can orbit both stars without being disrupted. These zones are not narrow. They are not rare. They exist wherever distances and speeds line up correctly. When a planet forms in one of these zones or moves into one early in its history, it can remain there for very long periods of time. Millions of years, billions of years. The planet's orbit is shaped by three main factors: its distance from the stars, its speed around the center of mass, the masses of the two stars. Once those values settle into a stable combination, the system becomes self-maintaining. The planet does not need active correction. There is no external stabilizer. There is no hidden force. Gravity alone keeps everything in place. The stars pull, the planet moves, the balance holds. From moment to moment, the planet's orbit is not a perfect circle. It is slightly stretched, slightly asymmetric, always changing shape as the stars move closer together or farther apart. But over long periods of time, the average path remains the same. The planet returns to the same region of space again and again. It does not drift outward. It does not spiral inward. It does not cross dangerous thresholds. It remains locked into a long-term rhythm. This is what astronomers mean by orbital stability. Not stillness, not perfection, but persistence. The ability of a system to keep repeating its pattern without falling apart, without needing intervention, without trending toward collapse. Circumbinary systems can be surprisingly stable. Some have existed for billions of years, longer than complex life has existed on Earth, longer than Earth itself has had its current oceans, longer than most of the visible structures in our galaxy. Their stability comes from predictability. Every object follows known physical rules. Every movement changes gradually. There are no sudden jumps, no abrupt shifts, no chaotic swings in gravitational force. The planet always knows, in a physical sense, how fast to move and where to go next, because gravity is continuous, not intermittent, not impulsive. It is always present, always shaping motion. From a far perspective, this entire system looks calm. Two stars looping around each other, one planet looping around both, all three moving through space together. No collisions, no disruptions, no dramatic events. Just slow motion, just repetition, just endurance. And even when small variations occur, they are absorbed into the system. Tiny changes in distance, tiny changes in speed, tiny changes in alignment. All of them averaged out over time, all of them smoothed into the larger pattern. This is why these worlds can last, not because they are simple, but because their complexity is organized, because their motion is structured, because their forces are balanced. As you imagine this from your quiet place of rest, it becomes easier to feel how gentle it all is. Nothing in this system rushes. Nothing in this system snaps. Nothing in this system forces a sudden outcome. Everything unfolds gradually. Everything responds slowly. Everything remains within stable limits, even though two stars are involved. Even though gravity is coming from two moving sources. Even though the geometry of the system is always changing. The planet's path remains smooth, its orbit remains intact, its future remains predictable. And that predictability is what makes the next layer possible, because once a planet can remain in a stable orbit around two stars, something else begins to happen. The light begins to change, not randomly, not violently, but slowly, in ways that never repeat exactly the same way twice. And as you drift a little closer toward the surface of this distant world, you begin to notice how those two moving suns reshape day and night. As the planet continues its steady path around both stars, the light begins to behave in a way that feels unfamiliar. There is not just one sunrise, there are two. Not at the same moment, not from the same point on the horizon. One sun appears first, low and distant, a soft glow spreading across the ground. The sky brightens slowly. Then, sometime later, the second sun follows, rising from a slightly different direction, adding its light to what is already there. The brightness increases again, not suddenly, not sharply, just a gradual layering of light. Two dawns, one after the other. The order can change. On some days, one sun rises much earlier. On others, their timings drift closer together. Sometimes they rise far apart on the horizon, sometimes closer. It depends on where the two stars are in their shared orbit. It depends on where the planet is along its own path. The geometry is always shifting, slowly, predictably, never repeating in exactly the same way. From the surface, the effect is subtle and steady. There is no single moment when night becomes day. There is a long transition. Darkness softens, shadows become visible. The first sunlight stretches thin lines across the ground. Then the second sunlight fills in the rest. The landscape does not flip from dark to bright. It unfolds into brightness in stages, and when the day eventually ends, it does not end all at once. One sun begins to sink, its light weakens, its angle lowers, shadows lengthen, the sky dims slightly, but it is not yet night. The second sun is still up, still casting light, still warming the surface. Then, much later, the second sun also descends, at a different place on the horizon, at a different angle, bringing a second sunset, another gradual fading, another slow withdrawal of light. Two dusks, one after the other. The planet never experiences a clean boundary between day and night. There is always a long overlap, long stretches of partial light, extended twilight periods, moments when one sun is up and the other is down. Moments when both are up, moments when both are down. The cycle is complex, but it is not chaotic. It follows the same underlying motion again and again. The stars move around each other. The planet moves around them. The angles shift. The timings drift. But everything remains within a repeating pattern. On some days, both suns are visible together for a long time. The sky holds two bright disks at once. Two shadows form from every object. Two directions of light shape the surface. On other days, their appearances barely overlap. One sun sets, a long twilight follows, then the other sun rises. The planet passes through a prolonged dim phase, not fully night, not fully day, just quiet half-light. The length of these periods changes slowly over time, not from one day to the next, but over many orbits, as the stars continue their dance. So as the planet continues its slow circuit, the rising and setting times drift, the angles shift, the overlaps grow longer or shorter, but nothing jumps abruptly, nothing resets suddenly, everything transitions gently. This makes the light feel alive without being unstable, dynamic without being unpredictable. The sky never repeats the same sequence exactly, but it always follows the same rules. The result is a surface that is bathed in changing light. Light that arrives from different directions. Light that fades and returns in layers. Light that stretches and compresses the length of dawn and dusk. From one horizon, a sun climbs. From another, a different sun sinks. Sometimes they cross paths in the sky, one rising while the other is still high. Other times, both are low at once, leaving the world in a long, extended twilight. There is no single rhythm of day. There is a slow weaving of light, a continuous reshaping of brightness, a gradual shifting of color and shadow, all driven by orbital motion, all governed by gravity, all repeating without ever becoming exactly the same. If you imagine standing still on this surface, you would never watch the same sunrise twice. You would never watch the same sunset twice, but you would always recognize the pattern. The way light arrives, the way it leaves, the way it overlaps, the way it fades. This is what a stable system with two suns looks like from the ground. Not violent, not confusing, just layered, just slow, just different. And as these double dawns and double dusks continue, something else begins to change. The amount of light is not only shifting in time, it is also shifting in strength. Because when two suns share the sky, brightness itself becomes variable, and that variability begins to shape everything that follows. As the days continue, the light never holds the same strength for very long. It changes, not suddenly, not sharply, but slowly, as the two stars shift their positions around each other. Sometimes both suns are high in the sky at the same time. Their light overlaps. The surface becomes brighter. Shadows soften. The air warms a little more. This is a period of double light. Not extreme, not blinding. Just a gentle increase in brightness that lasts for hours, or even days. Then, gradually, one of the suns begins to move away. Its path lowers. Its light angle changes. The brightness weakens slightly. The planet enters a phase of single light. One sun still up, one sun already down. The surface cools a little. The shadows sharpen again. The sky dims, but not into darkness, just into a quieter level of day. These transitions repeat, over and over. Double light, single light, then double light again. The timing is not fixed, it drifts. As the stars continue their shared orbit, as the planet continues its slow circuit around both of them. Sometimes the periods of double light are long, stretching across much of the day. Other times they are brief, just a short overlap when both suns appear together. The same with single light phases. Sometimes the planet spends long stretches with only one sun in the sky. Other times, both suns remain visible for extended periods. The pattern is dynamic, but it is not random. It follows predictable orbital paths. The stars move around their center of mass. The planet moves around them. The angles between all three bodies change slowly. This geometry controls how much light reaches the surface and when. Nothing jumps, nothing breaks, everything transitions gradually. The brightness increases and decreases like a slow tide, not in water, but in light. On some days, the surface receives nearly twice the usual energy, both suns high, both shining. On other days, only one sun provides warmth and light. The difference is noticeable, but not extreme, not disruptive. The planet adjusts. The atmosphere responds. The surface temperature shifts gently, always within a stable range. The sky itself looks different during these phases. When both suns are present, the light comes from two directions. Shadows appear in pairs, edges soften, colors look slightly washed. When only one sun is up, the light becomes directional again. One main shadow, sharper contrasts, clearer outlines. The world never locks into a single lighting condition, but it never loses its rhythm. The cycle continues, day after day, orbit after orbit. The stars repeat their dance. The planet repeats its path. The light pattern repeats its structure, even if the exact sequence never matches perfectly. Over longer timescales, the same overall behavior returns. The same range of brightness, the same time in relationships, the same slow transitions. Nothing drifts into chaos. Nothing collapses into disorder. The gravitational system remains stable. The orbital periods remain consistent. The light cycles remain bounded. This stability is what allows the surface to remain predictable. Even with two suns, even with shifting light, even with changing brightness, the planet is not being pulled apart. It is not being flung outward. It is not spiraling inward. Its orbit remains smooth. Its distance from the stars remains within a narrow range. This keeps the energy input stable. The variations in light are layered on top of that stability. not replacing it. The result is a day that is always moving, always changing, but never breaking. Brightness rises and falls, heat increases and decreases, shadows lengthen and shrink, but always within the same gentle limits. The planet does not experience long-term drift into overheating. It does not plunge into extended darkness. The balance holds. Over thousands of years, over millions of years, over billions of years, the same patterns return, the same cycles continue. This is what it means for a circumbinary world to be stable, not frozen into sameness, not trapped in repetition, but moving through controlled variation, a system that changes without losing its structure. As you imagine standing on this surface, watching the sky, the light would feel alive, but never threatening, never unpredictable, just quietly shifting, layer by layer, hour by hour, day by day. And as these shifting daylight patterns continue, something else becomes noticeable. The light is not only changing in strength, it is also changing in timing across longer periods. Because these worlds do not just have days, they also have seasons. Over longer stretches of time, the changes in light begin to shape something like seasons, but not in the way seasons work on Earth. Here, the timing is not fixed, the length is not regular, the intensity is not the same from one cycle to the next, because the two stars are always moving, and the planet is always moving with them. Sometimes the stars are closer together in their orbit. Their combined light reaches the planet more directly. The surface receives a little more energy. These periods feel warmer, not suddenly, not sharply, just a slow increase in temperature that lasts for months or even years. Other times, the stars are farther apart. Their light spreads out. The angles change. The planet receives a little less energy. These periods feel cooler. Again, not suddenly, not sharply, just a gradual softening of warmth. A long easing downward. The result is a set of seasons that do not repeat on a strict schedule. Some warm periods last longer than others. Some cooler periods pass more quickly. Some cycles bring slightly higher peaks of warmth. Others remain mild from beginning to end. But none of them push the planet into extremes. There is no runaway heating. There is no deep freezing. The gravitational balance keeps the orbital distances within a narrow range. The energy input always stays within limits. The climate never drifts beyond control. Even when the two suns align in a way that increases brightness for an extended time, the increase is slow. The surface absorbs more heat. The atmosphere adjusts. Cloud patterns shift. Radiation reflects back into space. The system stabilizes itself. The temperature rises, then it levels off. When the suns move into a configuration that reduces the incoming energy, the cooling happens just as slowly. Heat radiates away. The atmosphere thickens in certain layers. Cloud cover changes again. The temperature drops. Then it levels off. Nothing overshoots. Nothing collapses. These seasons feel irregular, but not unstable. They are shaped by orbital geometry, not by randomness. The planet does not experience sudden transitions from warmth to cold. There are no sharp edges between seasons, only long gradients, long transitions, long overlaps. A warmer phase blends into a cooler phase. A cooler phase blends back into a warmer one. Over centuries, the same range of seasonal behavior repeats. The same limits, the same slow pacing, the same gentle oscillations. This stability matters. It means the surface is never shocked by extreme changes. It means geological processes continue at steady rates. It means atmospheric circulation remains predictable. It means any long-term systems that develop on this world can adapt, not to chaos, but to consistency. Even with two suns, even with shifting light, even with changing seasons, the climate never loses its structure. The planet never leaves its safe zone. These unusual seasons add variation, but they do not add danger. They add texture to time, but not instability. If you were standing here, watching the sky over years, you would notice the warmth coming and going. You would feel the air grow slightly heavier during longer warm phases. You would feel it thin a little during longer cool phases. You would see changes in cloud height, in haze density, in the way light scatters through the atmosphere. But you would never feel the planet losing control, never feel the ground becoming hostile, never feel the air turning unbreathable. This system holds, always. The two suns continue their slow dance. The planet continues its slow orbit. The seasons continue their slow drift. Everything remains bounded. Everything remains gentle. Everything remains stable. And as these irregular seasons pass, something else becomes clear. The atmosphere is not just reacting, it is actively redistributing energy, carrying heat from brighter regions to dimmer ones, smoothing out the differences, preparing the way for the next layer of balance. The atmosphere does not stay still. It never has to. Even under two suns, it moves in slow, steady patterns. Warm air rises from regions that receive more light. Cooler air settles where the light is softer. The difference creates motion, not sudden winds, not violent storms, just long, gentle flows. Across the surface, air begins to drift, from warmer zones toward cooler ones, from brighter regions toward dimmer ones. It carries heat with it, a slow transfer of energy, always happening, always balancing. Because the two suns move, because their light shifts, because the seasons change slowly, the atmosphere adjusts just as slowly. Large circulation cells form. They stretch across entire hemispheres. Air rises near the areas of strongest combined light. It moves high above the surface. Then it spreads outward. Then it descends where the incoming energy is lower. Then it returns along the surface. The cycle repeats again and again, over years, over centuries. The winds never rush. They do not need to. There is no sharp pressure contrast, no sudden temperature shock, only gradual differences. So the air flows remain calm, measured, predictable. High above, jet streams form, long ribbons of fast-moving air. They circle the planet endlessly. Their paths bend slightly as the two stars shift their positions. Sometimes the jets tighten, sometimes they loosen. Sometimes they drift closer to the equator. Sometimes they drift toward higher latitudes, but they never break. They never collapse. They never spiral into chaos. They respond to the light. They respond to the heat. They respond to the slow gravitational geometry of the system. And then they settle again. The planet keeps redistributing energy, always smoothing out extremes, always narrowing temperature differences. If one side receives more light for a long period, will the winds strengthen slightly? They move more heat away from that region. If another area cools for a long period, the winds weaken slightly. They allow more warmth to remain. The system corrects itself, not forcefully, not dramatically, quietly, persistently. Even when both suns align and increase brightness over part of the surface, the response is controlled. Air rises a little higher, circulation cells widen, jet streams shift position, heat moves outward, the surface temperature rises, then it stabilizes. When the suns separate and the combined light weakens, the response reverses. Air rises less, cells contract, jets shift back, heat remains closer to the brighter zones. The surface temperature falls. Then it stabilizes. Nothing overshoots, nothing spirals, nothing accumulates unchecked. The atmosphere always stays within limits. The entire system remains in long-term equilibrium. This balance is not fragile. It is not temporary. It has been sustained for millions of years, possibly billions. The dual star system does not destabilize the climate. It shapes it. It adds complexity, but not instability. Every change in light is matched by a change in motion. Every increase in heat is matched by an increase in redistribution. Every decrease in heat is matched by a slowing of circulation. The atmosphere acts as a buffer, a regulator, a constant mediator between two suns and one world. And this slow movement creates something else: cloud behavior, moisture transport, condensation patterns. As warm air rises, it cools. Water vapor condenses. Clouds form. They stretch into long bands. They circle the planet along the paths of the jet streams, sometimes thicker, sometimes thinner, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but always present, always shifting gently. These clouds reflect part of the incoming light. They trap part of the outgoing heat. They add another layer of control, another stabilizing factor. The atmosphere never lets the surface become too bright, never lets it become too dark, never lets temperatures drift too far in either direction. It is a continuous process, unbroken, quiet, reliable. And as the winds continue their slow work, something subtle becomes visible. The sky itself becomes part of the planet's balance. The way light scatters, the way clouds gather, the way haze forms and fades, all responding to two suns, all adjusting, all settling into long-term patterns, preparing the next layer of calm behavior. The clouds. The clouds do not rush, they form slowly. They move slowly, they change slowly. Under two suns, weather does not behave like sudden drama. It behaves like a steady rhythm. Long bands of clouds stretch across the sky. They follow the paths of the jet streams. They wrap around the planet, sometimes wide, sometimes narrow, sometimes thin, sometimes dense, but always present, always drifting. The same cloud systems remain in place for years, sometimes for decades. They do not break apart quickly, they do not rebuild overnight. They shift a little, they thin a little, they thicken a little, they slide a little east, they slide a little west, but they remain. They are part of the planet's long-term structure. When warm air rises, clouds gather. When cooler air descends, clouds fade. The cycle repeats, again and again. The storms are not violent, they are not fast. They are not unpredictable. They form gradually, they grow gradually, they move gradually, they dissolve gradually. Some storms take months to cross a continent-sized region. Some take years. They carry rain. They release heat. They stabilize temperature differences. They never explode. They never collapse suddenly. they never surprise the surface. Every shift is slow enough to be expected. Every change follows patterns that repeat. Even under two suns, lightning is rare. Strong winds are rare. Pressure extremes are rare. The atmosphere never builds enough imbalance to create violent systems. There is too much time for correction, too much redistribution, too much buffering, so the clouds stay calm. They stay layered. They stay organized. High clouds form long, thin streaks. Mid-level clouds form broad sheets. Low clouds form gentle covers. Sometimes the sky holds two distinct layers at once, one reflecting light from the nearer star, one responding more strongly to the farther star. The lighting changes, the cloud positions shift, but the overall structure stays the same. From the surface, the sky looks different every day, but not unpredictable, not chaotic, not unstable. The two suns rise at different times. They cast light at different angles. The clouds respond. They glow softly when both stars are above the horizon. They dim gently when one sets. They never vanish completely. They never overwhelm the sky. They stay in balance with the incoming energy. The rain falls slowly. Light rainfall is more common than heavy rainfall. Showers last for hours, sometimes for days, but they are not intense. They soak the ground gradually. They feed slow rivers. They refill shallow seas. They never flood entire regions. They never strip soil away. The water cycle runs quietly, steadily. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, runoff again and again, all at measured speeds. And because the cloud systems persist, the weather becomes predictable. There are no sudden seasonal storms, no unexpected droughts, no abrupt freezes. The same regions receive similar conditions year after year, decade after decade, century after century. The planet's weather is not dramatic. It is dependable. It is consistent. It is slow. The sky becomes a stable feature of the world, not a threat, not a surprise, just a constant presence. And beneath that steady sky, something else becomes clear. The surface temperatures, they do not swing wildly. They do not spike. They do not crash. They form smooth gradients. Warm regions remain warm. Cool regions remain cool. But the differences are not extreme. There are no sharp boundaries, no sudden walls of heat, no sudden cliffs of cold. The planet transitions gently from one zone to another. As you move across the surface, the air changes slowly. The ground temperature shifts gradually. The water temperature follows. You would not feel a sudden shock. You would not cross a sudden threshold. Everything blends. The dual star system creates complex lighting, but the atmosphere turns that complexity into stability. Where both suns shine strongly for long periods, temperatures rise, but not endlessly. The increased heat drives stronger winds. Those winds carry energy away. Clouds thicken. More light reflects back into space. The warming slows. Then it stops. Where one sun dominates for long periods, temperatures are moderate. Where neither sun shines strongly, temperatures fall, but not endlessly. Circulation brings warmth in, clouds thin. More heat remains. The cooling slows, then it stops. The planet never drifts toward runaway heating. It never drifts toward total freezing. Every imbalance creates a correction. Every correction restores equilibrium. The temperature zones stay in place for long periods. They shift slightly as the stars move, but they never collapse, never invert, never disappear. The warm belts stay warm, the cool belts stay cool, the twilight regions stay moderate, the poles stay cold. The structure remains, even over millions of years. The system holds. Oceans moderate temperatures further. They absorb heat during bright periods. They release heat during dim periods. They smooth the cycles. They dampen extremes. They add inertia to the climate. Nothing changes quickly. Nothing changes sharply. Everything unfolds slowly. And because of that, the planet feels calm. Not because nothing happens, but because everything happens at a gentle pace. The day-to-day differences are subtle. The year-to-year differences are subtle. The century-to-century differences are subtle. The temperature never surprises the surface. It never surprises the atmosphere. It never surprises the oceans. It follows the same rules, the same feedback loops, the same steady corrections. 2 suns, 1 world, and a climate that remains stable. Not in spite of complexity, but because complexity is managed by slow, persistent processes. The warmth moves, the clouds form, the winds adjust, the oceans respond, the temperatures settle. Again, and again, and again. And in that settled climate, something else begins to matter. The water, the seas, the slow movement of surface liquids under 2 distant stars. The water moves slowly. It never rushes, it never surges. It never rises suddenly and falls suddenly. On a planet under 2 suns, evaporation happens at a steady pace. Heat from the stars warms the surface. Liquid water turns into vapor. But it does so gradually, not in bursts, not in violent pulses, just a quiet lifting, molecule by molecule, hour by hour, day by day. The air carries that vapor away. Not far, not fast. Winds are gentle. Circulation is slow. The vapor drifts. It cools. It condenses. It forms clouds. Those clouds hold their shape for long periods. They thicken. They thin. They move across continents. They never collapse into violent storms. They never release rain all at once. Precipitation falls gently, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. The rain is light, it spreads evenly, it feeds lakes, it fills shallow seas, it replenishes rivers. Nothing floods suddenly, nothing dries out suddenly. The hydrological cycle runs on long timescales. Everything takes time. Surface water remains in place. Lakes do not appear and disappear seasonally. Seas do not shrink and expand dramatically. Coastlines remain stable. Shorelines move slowly, centimeter by centimeter, year by year. Evaporation removes water. Precipitation returns water. Runoff moves water. Infiltration stores water underground. The balance holds again and again. Some regions receive more light from both suns. Those regions have higher evaporation, but they also have more cloud formation, more reflective cover, more rainfall. Other regions receive less light. They have lower evaporation, but they also receive moisture transported from warmer zones. The differences smooth out. No area becomes permanently dry. No area becomes permanently flooded. The system corrects itself. The lakes stay full. The seas stay wide. The rivers keep flowing. Not fast, not slow, just steadily. Even the waves are gentle. Winds are not strong enough to create large storms. Surface winds create small ripples. Long, low waves. The oceans remain calm. Storm surges are rare. Extreme tides are rare. The gravitational influence of two stars does not disrupt the oceans. The orbital distance is too large. The tides are mild. The water levels remain consistent. Nothing pulls the seas into violent motion. Nothing drains them away. Nothing piles them up catastrophically. Ice forms in colder regions. It melts in warmer regions. But both processes happen slowly. Glaciers advance. Glaciers retreat over thousands of years, never suddenly, never catastrophically. The water never disappears. It changes form. It moves location, but it remains part of the system, always cycling, always present, always stable. This persistence matters because water moderates everything else. It absorbs heat, it releases heat, it buffers temperature swings, it smooths climate variations, it stabilizes weather, it connects the atmosphere to the surface, it connects the surface to the interior, it connects one region to another. Under two suns, the water cycle becomes a stabilizing force, not a source of chaos, not a driver of extremes, just a quiet regulator, running continuously over millions of years. And while the water moves through air and across land, something else moves even more slowly. The chemistry of the atmosphere. The gases above the surface do not change quickly. They are shaped by light from two stars, but that light arrives in predictable patterns. Photochemical reactions happen. Molecules absorb energy. They break apart. They recombine, but they do so gradually. The composition of the air shifts slowly. Oxygen levels, carbon dioxide levels, nitrogen levels, trace gases, all remain within narrow ranges. There are no sudden chemical surges, no sudden losses, no sudden buildups. The two suns provide radiation at varying intensities, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker, but always within stable bounds. That radiation drives chemical reactions, but it does not overwhelm the atmosphere. It does not strip gases away. It does not trigger runaway effects. The upper atmosphere absorbs high-energy light. It protects the lower layers. Chemical feedback loops stabilize concentrations. If one gas increases, reactions accelerate that remove it. If one gas decreases, reactions slow down. The system balances itself. Ozone layers form. They thin, they thicken, but they never vanish. They never become dangerously dense. They regulate incoming radiation. They protect surface chemistry. Clouds filter sunlight. They alter photochemical rates. They slow reactions during dim periods. They allow faster reactions during bright periods. The result is continuity. Day after day, year after year, the same chemical composition persists. Minor variations, but no collapse, no instability, no sudden chemical shocks. Even volcanic emissions do not disrupt the atmosphere. If volcanoes release gases, circulation disperses them. Chemical reactions neutralize them. Rain washes them out. The system absorbs disturbances, then returns to equilibrium, again and again and again. The atmosphere does not age quickly. It evolves slowly, over millions of years, not thousands, not centuries. The dual star environment does not destabilize chemistry. It simply introduces gentle variability, which the system absorbs. The air remains breathable, the surface remains protected, the climate remains stable. Everything continues. The chemistry supports the water supports the climate supports the atmosphere. Each layer stabilizes the others. Nothing drifts out of range. Nothing collapses. Nothing spirals out of control. The planet's environment becomes a closed loop, balanced, self-correcting, persistent, and that persistence extends even deeper into the surface itself, into the slow changes of rock, into the gradual shaping of land over long spans of time. The surface does not change quickly, rock does not move quickly, land does not reshape itself suddenly. On a planet that orbits two suns, geology unfolds at a slow pace. Erosion happens, but it happens quietly. Wind brushes against stone, rain touches exposed surfaces, ice expands and contracts, grains loosen, particles fall. They move downhill, millimeter by millimeter, year by year. Rivers carve channels, but not deeply, not rapidly. They widen their paths over thousands of years. They smooth edges, they round corners. They do not cut sudden canyons. They do not create violent cliffs. Mountains rise slowly. If tectonic activity exists at all, it is mild. Plates drift, but only a few centimeters per year. There are no sudden collisions, no dramatic uplifts, no massive subductions. Volcanoes are rare. When they occur, they release modest flows, not explosive, not catastrophic. Lava cools, it spreads thin, it becomes part of the landscape. The heat from the interior is stable. It does not surge, it does not drop. It supports slow geological processes. Nothing forces the surface to reset itself. Nothing erases continents. Nothing builds them suddenly. Valleys remain valleys. Plains remain plains. Plateaus remain plateaus. Coastlines shift slowly. Sediment accumulates. Sediment compacts. New layers form. Old layers sink. Everything takes time. Millions of years pass. The same mountain ranges still stand, slightly lower, slightly smoother, but still recognizable. The same river systems still flow, following the same paths. The same basins still collect water. The same deserts remain dry. The same fertile zones remain fertile. There is no rapid continental drift, no sudden climate-driven reshaping. No ice ages that advance and retreat violently. Ice caps grow slowly. They melt slowly. They do not surge. They do not collapse. The land beneath them adjusts. It rises slightly. It sinks slightly. Then stabilizes again. Impact events are rare. The orbit around two suns remains stable. The planet stays in a predictable path. There are no chaotic gravitational tugs, no destabilizing forces. Asteroid impacts are infrequent. When they happen, they are small. They do not reshape the world. They do not reset ecosystems. They leave shallow scars, which erosion smooths away. Over time, everything trends towards stillness, not absolute stillness, but practical stillness. Change happens, but it is spread across long spans, longer than lifetimes, longer than civilizations, longer than memory. The landscape becomes a record of endurance, a place where nothing rushes, a place where nothing demands immediate attention, a place where the surface remains familiar across epochs. Even coastlines persist. Sea levels do not swing wildly. They rise, they fall, but within narrow limits. The shoreline shifts a few meters inland, then back out, over thousands of years, not suddenly, not destructively. The continents do not fragment, they do not merge, they do not collide violently. They simply remain, slowly changing, quietly enduring. And while the land holds its shape, time continues to pass. It does not rush either. It moves forward steadily. On this world, days follow days. Years follow years. Millions of them, billions of them, and nothing collapses, nothing destabilizes, nothing drifts out of alignment. The two suns continue their orbit around a shared center of mass. Their paths remain predictable, their distance remains consistent, their light remains within stable limits. The planet continues its circumbinary orbit. It does not spiral inward, it does not drift outward, it does not wobble into chaos. The gravitational balance holds, year after year, century after century, million after million. The orbital period remains the same. The seasons remain patterned. They shift in intensity. They shift in length, but they never disappear. They never become extreme. They never fail to return. The climate remains within narrow bounds. No runaway greenhouse effect, no global freezing, no sudden atmospheric loss, no catastrophic chemical change. The atmosphere remains intact, the water remains present, the surface remains stable. Everything that supports the environment continues. The dual star system itself ages. The suns burn hydrogen. They convert it to helium. They slowly change luminosity. But the changes are gradual, so gradual they are almost unnoticeable. Over billions of years, the planet adjusts. Cloud cover increases slightly. Atmospheric composition shifts slightly. Surface temperatures rise slightly. Everything adapts. Nothing collapses, nothing breaks. There are no sudden endings, no sudden beginnings. The world simply continues and continues and continues. Civilizations could rise and fall. Species could emerge and disappear. Ecosystems could change, but the underlying structure remains. The orbit remains. The light cycles remain. The seasons remain. The climate remains. The geology remains. The water cycles remain. The chemistry remains. Time passes, but the world does not unravel. It does not decay into disorder. It does not drift into instability. It stays where it is. It keeps doing what it has always done, slowly, quietly, predictably. And that endurance becomes its defining feature. Not spectacle, not chaos, not dramatic change, but persistence. A system that holds itself together, not for thousands of years, not for millions of years, but for billions. Longer than any single process, longer than any single era, longer than any single memory. A planet that continues under two suns, not because it resists change, but because it absorbs change and returns to balance again and again and again. And as time stretches on, all of these layers remain connected. The orbit, the light, the atmosphere, the water, the surface, the chemistry, the geology. They do not drift apart. They do not decouple. They reinforce each other. They stabilize each other. They sustain each other. The planet becomes a closed, enduring system. Not frozen, not static, but slow enough to feel still. Stable enough to feel permanent. And as billions of years pass, nothing interrupts that continuity. Nothing resets it, nothing breaks it. Everything simply continues, leading quietly toward a deeper understanding of how all of these extremes hold together as one. Everything that has been unfolding so slowly now begins to align into a single pattern, not separate systems, not isolated processes, but one continuous balance. The two suns do not merely light the planet, they set the rhythm of everything. Their shared orbit defines the timing of days. Their changing angles define the seasons. Their combined gravity defines the planet's path through space. That path, in turn, defines how much energy arrives. Not too much, not too little, always within narrow bounds. The planet responds. Its atmosphere absorbs and redistributes that energy. Winds move warmth from bright regions into darker ones. Jet streams shift gently as the stars change position. Clouds form where heat rises. They dissolve where air cools. They never lock the world into endless storms. They never leave it exposed to endless glare. They modulate the light. They soften extremes. They return fluctuations back toward average. The surface responds next. Land heats slowly. Water heats more slowly. Rock releases warmth at night. Oceans release warmth even more gradually. Temperature differences remain modest. There are gradients, but no sharp boundaries. Warm regions fade into cool ones. Cool regions fade into warmer ones. Nothing flips suddenly. Nothing collapses. The hydrological cycle fits into this same rhythm. Water evaporates gently under dual sunlight. It condenses slowly as air rises. Rain falls steadily, not violently. Rivers carry water back to basins. Oceans store heat. Lakes buffer temperature swings. Ice forms where it should. It melts when it should. It never surges forward. It never vanishes entirely. Even chemistry falls into step. Ultraviolet light triggers reactions in the upper atmosphere, but not at destructive rates. Molecules form. Molecules break apart. Ozone layers stabilize. Greenhouse gases settle into long-term equilibrium. Carbon cycles between air, water, and rock. Slowly, predictably, nothing spikes, nothing crashes. Geology anchors the system beneath everything else. The interior releases heat at a steady pace. Tectonic plates move, but barely. Volcanoes release gases, but modestly. Mountain ranges erode, but slowly. Sediments accumulate, but gradually. The surface becomes a long-term memory of balance, not a record of catastrophe, not a sequence of violent resets. Time ties all of this together. Billions of years pass. The suns brighten slightly. The atmosphere thickens slightly. Cloud cover increases slightly. Temperatures rise slightly. The planet adjusts. Again and again and again. Every small change in one layer is absorbed by another. More light arrives. Clouds reflect more of it. Temperatures rise. Chemical reactions accelerate slightly. Greenhouse gases shift. Heat redistribution changes. And balance returns. Less light arrives. Cloud cover thins. Winds weaken. Ice expands slightly. Albedo increases. And balance returns. The orbit remains stable. The climate remains bounded. The chemistry remains continuous. The geology remains slow. Nothing operates in isolation. Nothing overwhelms the rest. Everything responds to everything else. The system is not rigid. It is flexible, but only within narrow limits. It bends, it adjusts, it self-corrects. This is not a fragile harmony. It is not dependent on perfect conditions. It is built from feedback loops, from delays, from slow processes, from inertia, from buffering layers stacked on top of one another. Atmosphere buffers light. Water buffers heat. Rock buffers climate. Orbit buffers energy input. Time buffers everything. The result is not perfection. It is endurance. A world that does not need to be protected from extremes because it already contains them and neutralizes them. A world that does not drift into chaos, because every deviation generates a counter-response. A world that does not race forward, because nothing moves fast enough to break it. Under two suns, nothing tears itself apart. Nothing spins out of alignment. Nothing collapses inward. Nothing escapes outward. Everything holds, not because it is forced to, but because its structure makes instability difficult and stability easy. This is what equilibrium looks like on a planetary scale. Not stillness, not uniformity, not silence, but a constant exchange. Light becoming heat, heat becoming motion, motion becoming clouds, clouds becoming rain, rain becoming rivers, rivers becoming oceans, oceans becoming vapor, vapor becoming clouds. All of it shaped by gravity, all of it constrained by orbit, all of it paced by time. Nothing here is dramatic, nothing here is urgent, nothing here is temporary. Everything continues, everything overlaps, everything supports everything else. And as the system holds together, something subtle becomes clear. This world is not extraordinary because it has two suns. It is extraordinary because it works, because all of these extremes do not cancel each other out. They stabilize each other, they reinforce each other. They create a planet that does not merely survive its environment. It belongs to it. It fits into it. It grows from it. And as all these layers settle into a single pattern, the feeling that remains is not excitement. It is humility. Because nothing here depends on intention. Nothing here depends on design. Nothing here depends on meaning. It depends on physics, on slow processes, on feedback loops, on balance, on time. A reminder that even under the most unfamiliar skies, order can emerge and endure quietly, relentlessly, for billions of years, leading gently toward the deeper realization that stability itself is the most improbable outcome of all. For a long time, it feels natural to assume that balance means sameness. Two equal weights, two matching forces, two identical halves. It feels intuitive. If something is stable, then everything inside it must be symmetrical, perfectly aligned, perfectly mirrored. But the planet beneath two suns does not follow that rule. The two stars are not equal. One may be brighter, one may be heavier, one may move slightly faster. Their distances change, their angles shift, their combined light never repeats the same pattern. And yet, nothing falls apart, nothing spirals away, nothing collapses inward. The planet does not require equality to remain stable. It only requires relationship. The two stars revolve around a shared center of mass, not around each other directly, not around the planet, around a point in space that exists between them. That point is not fixed. It shifts slightly as the stars move, but the system remains ordered. The planet follows a path that averages their pull, not matching either star, not choosing one over the other. It holds both at once. This is not symmetry. This is compensation, where one star pulls more strongly, the other pulls less. Where one brightens the sky, the other dims. Where one advances in its orbit, the other lags. The effects cancel out. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but continuously. Small imbalances generate small corrections. Minute deviations generate counter-movements. Nothing requires precision. Everything requires response. The orbit persists not because the forces are equal, but because they remain connected. Their differences are not a flaw in the system, they are what allow it to regulate itself. Two uneven sources of gravity create a more flexible field. Two unequal light sources create a broader range of illumination. Two different rhythms create a longer combined cycle. The system does not lock into one extreme, it oscillates gently between them. Stability here is not stillness. It is motion that never breaks its bounds. It is variation that never accumulates into collapse. The two suns do not divide the system into opposing halves. They weave it into a single pattern. Their separation creates structure. Their difference creates continuity. Their unequal motion creates repetition. Nothing about this world requires uniformity. Its climate does not rely on identical days. Its seasons do not rely on regular timing. Its light does not rely on a fixed schedule. Its stability comes from overlapping influences, from mismatched inputs that average out over time. One sun may linger longer in the sky, the other may set early. The brightness may rise slowly, then fall sharply, then rise again. The temperature may follow behind. The atmosphere may respond with delay. The surface may store heat and release it later. Every layer smooths the irregularities of the one above it. This is not balance as sameness. This is balance as buffering. It is balance as mutual correction. It is balance as persistence. Division does not weaken the system, it stabilizes it. Two sources of light mean no single failure can erase illumination entirely. Two gravitational anchors mean no single disturbance can unbind the orbit. Two rhythms mean no single resonance can dominate. The planet exists inside a field of competing influences, and because of that, none of them can take over. This is what makes the system durable. Not its order, its complexity, not its symmetry, its redundancy, not its simplicity, its layered responses. Nothing here depends on a single condition remaining perfect. Everything here depends on small mismatches that keep everything else in check. Even the climate reflects this principle. When one star brightens the sky more strongly, the atmosphere thickens slightly. Cloud cover increases, albedo rises, less light reaches the surface, temperatures stabilize. When both stars align and intensify illumination, winds redistribute heat, oceans absorb excess energy, evaporation increases, clouds form, rain follows. The system absorbs the surge. When the stars drift apart in their orbit and dim the sky, clouds thin. Greenhouse gases trap more heat, ice retreats. The system absorbs the deficit. No single input dominates for long. No single phase persists. The irregularity is not noise, it is structure. It prevents runaway processes. It prevents lock-in. It prevents feedback loops from amplifying themselves uncontrollably. Balance here is not a fragile equilibrium. It is a dynamic one. It does not require the system to remain unchanged. It requires the system to remain responsive. This is why the planet does not require two identical suns. It requires two suns whose differences never stop interacting. Their division is not a split, it is a relationship. It is the engine of continuity. And this reframes what stability means. It does not mean equal forces pulling in opposite directions. It means uneven forces that never stop adjusting to each other. It means inputs that never fully agree, but never fully diverge. It means a system that remains coherent not because nothing changes, but because change never accumulates into catastrophe. Under two suns, balance is not symmetry, it is persistence through difference. And this realization opens something larger, because nothing about this logic is unique to this planet. The same principle appears everywhere, in orbits, in climates, in stars, in galaxies, in the slow architecture of the universe itself. Stability rarely comes from perfect alignment. It comes from slow interactions between unequal parts, from feedback loops, from delays, from inertia, from gradual corrections layered on top of one another. The universe is not stable because it is uniform. It is stable because it is structured, and that structure is built from a symmetry. The same laws that allow a planet to orbit two suns also shape everything else. They govern how stars ignite, how galaxies rotate, how matter clumps, how energy flows, how systems persist. Gravity does not require symmetry. It requires mass. It requires distance. It requires motion. Two bodies orbit because their mutual attraction curves their paths, not because they are equal. A star forms not because matter is evenly distributed, but because small density variations grow. Gas collapses into denser regions, heat builds, pressure rises, fusion begins. A star stabilizes not because everything inside it is uniform, but because outward pressure from fusion balances inward gravity. That balance is never exact. It oscillates, it adjusts, it shifts as fuel is consumed, as composition changes, as energy output evolves. Yet the star persists. For millions, for billions. Not because it is static, but because its internal feedback loops regulate it. Planets form not because disks of material are smooth, but because they are uneven. Clumps grow, collisions merge, orbits settle, resonances form, debris clears. The final system is not symmetrical, it is organized. Galaxies rotate not because their mass is evenly spread, but because angular momentum is conserved, because gravity binds stars into rotating disks, because our arc matter shapes the gravitational field, because energy dissipates, because motion persists. The same pattern repeats across scales. Small imbalances grow, then stabilize, then regulate, then persist. Nothing in the universe is perfectly balanced. Everything is approximately balanced, and approximation is what makes endurance possible. Exact symmetry would be fragile. A perfect configuration would shatter under the smallest disturbance. Asymmetry absorbs shocks. Asymmetry dissipates energy. Asymmetry allows correction. The laws of physics do not aim for perfection. They aim for persistence. They do not produce static systems. They produce long-lived ones. They do not eliminate extremes. They constrain them. Stars brighten, then fade. Galaxies collide, then settle. Planets warm, then cool. Orbits drift, then stabilize. Everything moves, everything changes, everything endures, because nothing is isolated, because every process is coupled to others, because every extreme generates a counter-process, because time smooths irregularities, because inertia resists sudden change, because feedback loops dampen oscillations. The universe does not require careful tuning at every moment. It requires slow laws acting continuously. Gravity always pulls, fusion always releases energy, radiation always carries heat away, entropy always increases, and within these constraints, stable systems emerge. Not because the universe prefers order, but because unstable configurations destroy themselves. What remains is what can endure. A planet under two suns endures, not because it is special, but because its configuration is one of the many that can persist under physical law. It is not an exception. It is a demonstration, a quiet one, a slow one, a patient one. It shows that complexity does not require chaos. That division does not require collapse. That asymmetry does not require instability. It shows that long-term order is not rare. It is the default outcome of slow, regulated processes. When forces act over long timescales, when feedback loops operate continuously, when energy flows gradually, when nothing changes too fast. The result is not stasis. It is equilibrium, not perfect, not unchanging, but bounded. The same logic that holds this planet together holds stars together, holds galaxies together, holds the large-scale structure of the universe together. Filaments of matter stretch across billions of light years. Clusters of galaxies orbit shared centers of mass. Superclusters drift slowly toward gravitational attractors. Nothing is symmetrical. Everything is structured. Everything persists. Everything adjusts. Everything is held together by slow laws acting without intention. There is no design here, no plan, no purpose, only processes, only constraints, only time. And yet, the result is not disorder, it is continuity. A continuity that extends from subatomic particles to planetary systems to cosmic filaments. The same laws apply everywhere. They do not change their rules. They do not favor one scale over another. They do not care what forms emerge. They simply operate, and what emerges is what can survive their operation. This is why stability appears even under extreme conditions, under crushing gravity, under intense radiation, under vast distances, under enormous timescales, because the laws that govern these extremes are slow, they are consistent, they are relentless. They do not allow sudden departures from equilibrium. They do not permit runaway processes to continue indefinitely. They impose limits. They impose boundaries. They impose correction. A star cannot burn infinitely fast. Our pressure rises. Expansion follows. Energy output stabilizes. A planet cannot heat endlessly. Clouds form. Albedo rises. Heat is reflected. Temperatures stabilize. A galaxy cannot collapse infinitely. Angular momentum increases. Rotation speeds up. Centrifugal forces counter gravity. Structure stabilizes. Every extreme creates its own brake. Every acceleration creates its own resistance. Every deviation generates its own counterforce. Not immediately, not dramatically, but eventually and always. This is what endurance looks like in the universe. Not a frozen state, not a perfect balance, but a slow dance of competing processes that never quite win. The two suns above that planet are just one example, but they are not a rare one. They are not an anomaly. They are a reminder that stability does not require simplicity. It requires constraint, it requires interaction, it requires time. And as this realization settles in, something else becomes clear. This is not just a story about distant worlds. It is not just a story about stars and planets and orbits. It is a story about how everything that exists manages not to fall apart, including you. Your body is not symmetrical. Your internal chemistry is not uniform. Your cells are not identical. Your rhythms are not perfectly regular. Your inputs are not balanced. Your environment is not constant, and yet you persist. Not because everything inside you is equal, but because everything inside you is regulated. Your temperature is stabilized by sweating and shivering. Your blood chemistry is stabilized by kidneys and lungs. Your energy is stabilized by hunger and metabolism. Your thoughts are stabilized by feedback from your senses. Your emotions are stabilized by neurochemistry. Nothing is static. Everything adjusts. Everything compensates. Everything corrects. You are not held together by symmetry. You are held together by feedback loops, by slow processes, by inertia, by regulation, by balance that emerges from difference, just like that planet under two suns, just like stars, just like galaxies, just like the large-scale structure of the universe. You are part of the same physical logic, the same constraints, the same slow laws, the same endurance. Your stability is not fragile. It is layered, it is buffered, it is regulated, it is persistent, and it does not require perfection. It requires time. It requires response. It requires continuity. So as you imagine that distant world drifting beneath two suns, nothing tearing itself apart, nothing collapsing into chaos, nothing spinning out of control, it is not a fantasy. It is not an exception. It is not a miracle. It is what physical law produces when systems are allowed to evolve slowly. It is what endurance looks like. It is what balance looks like without symmetry. And it is what you are already part of, without effort, without intention, without needing to change anything at all, just by continuing to exist within the same slow, regulating universe, leading gently inward toward the quiet realization that the stability you see out there has always been present here too. You've just spent a long time drifting through a quiet system. Two suns, one world, slow motion, predictable orbits, stable light, enduring balance. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing gently, that means you've already done the only thing this story ever asked of you. You stayed. You allowed your thoughts to move more slowly. You let your attention rest on something that doesn't rush, that doesn't demand anything, that doesn't need to be solved. Circumbinary planets don't hurry. They don't react. They don't struggle. They follow paths shaped by gravity and time. They repeat cycles that stretch across years, across centuries, across billions of years. Nothing about their motion is urgent. Nothing about their balance is fragile. They don't hold themselves together through effort. They remain steady because the physical laws that shape them never stop acting. Slowly, continuously, quietly. The two suns continue to rise, continue to set, continue to change angles, continue to shift brightness. And the planet continues to move through those changes without breaking its rhythm. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It doesn't need identical days. It doesn't need symmetrical light. It remains stable because it exists inside a system that regulates itself. Small changes generate small corrections. Small deviations fade back into equilibrium. Nothing dramatic happens. Nothing collapses. Nothing accelerates beyond control. And that endurance is not rare. It is normal. It is what slow physical processes produce when they operate over long spans of time. You don't need to keep holding the image of that world in your mind. You don't need to remember the mechanics. You don't need to follow the details. It's enough to know that somewhere far beyond this room, far beyond this night, far beyond anything you need to worry about, there are planets that orbit two suns and remain stable for longer than any human history. They do it without awareness, without intention, without effort. They simply continue. And that same continuity is already present here. Your breathing continues. Your heart continues. Your body continues regulating itself. Your temperature, your chemistry, your circulation, your nervous system, all of it adjusts quietly in the background. You don't have to manage it. You don't have to monitor it. You don't have to fix anything. It happens on its own, the same way that distant planets continue along their orbits, the same way that stars continue burning their fuel, the same way that galaxies continue rotating, the same way that the structure of the universe continues unfolding. Nothing here requires your attention right now. Nothing here requires a decision. Nothing here requires control. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to plan anything. You don't need to understand anything further. The story has already done its work. It showed you a system that remains stable without symmetry. It showed you endurance without effort. It showed you balance without perfection. And now, there's nothing left to do but let that idea fade into the background, the same way light fades after a long sunset. Circumbinary planets don't rush their nights. Their darkness arrives gradually. Their light recedes slowly. There is no sharp edge between day and night. There is no sudden transition. Everything softens, everything dims, everything settles. You can let your thoughts do the same thing. You don't need to push them away. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to follow them. Just allow them to become quieter. Allow the pace of your thinking to slow. Allow the weight of the day to loosen. You've already done enough. You've already listened long enough. You've already imagined far enough. Nothing more is required. If your attention drifts, that's fine. If your mind wanders, that's fine. If you fall asleep, that's exactly what this moment is for. The world beneath two suns will continue its orbit, whether you're thinking about it or not. Its climate will remain stable. Its light cycles will continue repeating. Its seasons will continue shifting gently. Its atmosphere will continue circulating heat. Its clouds will continue forming and dissolving. Its surface will continue holding warmth. Its chemistry will continue balancing itself. Its geology will continue changing slowly. Its orbit will continue tracing the same path around two stars that never stop pulling on it. Nothing about that world depends on your awareness, and nothing about you depends on staying awake right now. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to stop listening. You're allowed to let go of the images. You're allowed to let the story dissolve into quiet. There is no ending you need to reach. There is no final point you need to understand. There is no lesson you need to take with you. There is only continuity, only endurance, only slow processes unfolding. If you come back to this story another night, it will still be here. The two suns will still rise. The planet will still orbit them. The balance will still hold. The calm will still exist. Nothing here expires. Nothing here demands urgency. Nothing here disappears when you stop paying attention. That's the quiet comfort of long-lived systems. They don't rely on moments, they rely on time, and time is abundant, so you don't have to carry any of this with you into sleep. You don't have to remember the details. You don't have to hold on to the science. You don't have to replay the images. You can let it all fade, like light fading after a long double sunset, like sound fading into silence, like thought fading into rest. Your body already knows how to sleep. It does this every night. It doesn't need instructions. It doesn't need encouragement. It doesn't need force. It just needs permission. And that permission is already here. There's nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, no idea left to follow. Just the steady rhythm of your breathing, the gentle stillness of your body, the quiet continuity of the moment you're in. Circumbinary planets remain stable under two suns, and you remain stable inside your own slow regulating system. Nothing about this moment is fragile. Nothing about this moment is temporary in a way that matters. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Slowly, continuously, quietly. So you can rest now. You can let your thoughts soften. You can let your awareness drift. You can let the day release its hold on you. And if you fall asleep before this story finishes, that's not a problem. That's the point. The universe doesn't need you to stay awake, and neither do you. Good night, and whenever you return, the twin skies will still be there.